subscribe. Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video where we are going to learn about a bunch of different types of dinosaurs. Also, these figures are the kind that we can put together and take apart. I love that, because afterwards we can mix all the pieces and create mutant dinosaurs. So it's going to be super fun. Also, in today's video, we'll be using the Big Book of Amazing Dinosaurs. You already know that I love to use it, because inside we have a ton of interesting information about all of them. For example, here we have the great Elasmosaurus, a marine reptile. It says it could reach about 14 meters in length and weigh up to 2 tons. Well, now we're really going to start getting to know the first of the dinosaurs. Here we have a great carnivore. This is a small velociraptor. Velociraptors could reach about 2 meters in length. Also, their bodies were very slim and thin, which allowed them to run at great speed. Something curious about their physique is that they had a very long and thin tail, which they used to change direction. As you can see, its legs are jointed, and we can also open and close the jaw. They hunted in groups, so even though they weren't very large, they could catch big prey. Another interesting fact is that it had one of its claws shaped like a sickle, and it also used its hands to grab meat. Well, we've already met the first of them, the Velociraptor. What do you think? Should we check out a flying reptile? What I like the most is that it comes in white, which makes it very eye-catching. Also, it can flap its wings up and down. As I mentioned, these figures can be assembled and disassembled, so that allows us to put the wings in different positions. As you can see, it is characterized by having a long and thin beak inside. It had a lot of sharp teeth, and as you can see, it is also characterized by having a small horn on the top of its head. This flying reptile was a giant among giants. It had an impressive wingspan, which allowed it to fly at great speed and reach a great height. In the book, we have information about several flying reptiles. We are going to look at this one here, which also had a long beak and a lot of sharp teeth. It tells us that it mainly fed on fish, so it always flew over areas of rivers, seas, and oceans in search of food. At the top, we see the scientific name, which is quite difficult to pronounce. It specifies that it lived on planet Earth during the Cretaceous period and had a long wingspan of about 4 meters in length. Impressive! And we keep discovering new specimens. What do you think? How about we bring out one of the big carnivores? It's the great Carnotaurus, characterized by the 2 horns on its head. Also, its skull was super big. It was so big that the sides were flattened to lighten the weight of its head. Another interesting detail about the Carnotaurus is that, even when it closed its jaw, the teeth of the upper jaw were always exposed. Also, it was bipedal. It walked on its hind legs and had a long, heavy tail that it used to balance the weight of its head. It used its front legs to help itself while eating, mainly to grab the meat and bring it to its mouth. Chomp chomp! The next dinosaur we're going to take out, one of the long-necked ones, is the great Brachiosaurus. The Brachiosaurus had a gigantic neck, so long that it was able to eat the leaves at the top of the trees. Its 4 legs were very sturdy, since they had to support the weight of this huge body. It also had a long tail, although not as thin as the Diplodocus's. Also, another interesting fact is that its brain was about the size of a walnut. So, can you imagine a gigantic dinosaur with such a tiny brain? However, according to researchers, its heart was very large and strong, since it had to be able to pump blood through its long neck all the way up to its head. Here's another one. Let's continue with one that has a crest. It's called Dimetrodon. Its crest of spines could reach more than 2 meters in length in adult specimens. Also, its body really reminds us of the body or anatomy of a large lizard. However, the Dimetrodon was gigantic in size. As you can see, it had a pretty powerful jaw. It wasn't very big, but it did have very strong teeth. Its bite was lethal. It had 4 legs, which it used both to walk on land and to dive into the water in search of food. When it dived into the water, it revealed its large crest of spines. Therefore, just like the Spinosaurus, it was also called the sailback dinosaur. I really like the details in the colors, super cool. Even though it's a hard plastic figure, the part with its spines is made of silicone, so that's why we can see it move from side to side. Another great carnivore. Let's continue with a herbivorous dinosaur that's one of my favorites, the famous Parasaurolophus. This herbivorous dinosaur had a lot of unique features. The first thing that stands out is the large horn it had on the back of its head. This horn was able to produce sounds. According to specialists, these sounds were very similar to those of a trombone dinosaur, and it used them to communicate with the rest of the herd. As you can see, it also had 4 legs, although the back ones were bigger and sturdier than the front ones. It had a mouth that wasn't very big, since it only ate plants, leaves, grass, and fruit. Can we tilt its head from right to left? Another one over here. What do you think? If we take out this dinosaur, it's the biggest one. It came inside the box. Also, it has some special movements. For example, it can rotate 350 degrees, and it can also move its head up and down. Let's leave it. This dinosaur, as you can see, had a crown-shaped skull. It's from the Triceratops family, but it's not a Triceratops, friends, because Triceratops had 3 horns. However, here we see that it had a large horn on the top of its nose. Also, on the sides of its frill, we can see large spikes or horns that it used to defend itself from predators. This herbivorous dinosaur is called Styracosaurus. I really like the details because they come in a silver color, completely speckled on the sides and on the top of its tail. It can move its legs. We can leave it, for example, lying down on its side, or we can even pretend it's climbing a tree looking for food. Also, another interesting fact about this type of herbivore is that it had a strong beak to dig in the ground in search of food. Above all, it loved to eat roots from the ground. Well, we'll leave this giant dinosaur here and continue with another one. We can see that it also has a large crest of spines. It's the famous Spinosaurus. It was also gigantic. Adult male specimens could reach about 17 meters in length, from the tip of its mouth to the end of its tail. Unlike Dimetrodon, Spinosaurus was bipedal and usually walked on its hind legs. It also loved to eat marine animals, especially some large ones, so it would often dive into the water in search of food. Its jaw was really well developed, very long and wide, and it closely resembled the jaw of modern crocodiles. We still have a lot of dinosaurs left to discover, and now we're going to bring out a fascinating specimen, the great Ankylosaurus, also known as the armored dinosaur or the armadillo of the Cretaceous. It was characterized by the fact that the entire upper part of its body was very thick, almost unbreakable, and covered with large spikes or spines. It also had a large defensive tail, as you can see, with a club at the tip that it swung from side to side to defend itself from predators. It also had large spikes on the sides of its head. It was impossible to penetrate that skin. As you can see, it was also a quadruped, and it had great strength in its hind legs to deliver its defensive tail strike. Another one over here, and now we're really going to take out. One of the greatest predators that has ever existed on planet Earth is the great Tyrannosaurus Rex. The colors of this figure are extraordinary. Yellow, black, and the details really remind me of a tiger. As you can see, notice that its large jaw was equipped with a total of 60 sharp teeth. The T-Rex could reach about 14 meters in length. And its tail was especially large and heavy, since its head was so big that it needed a counterweight to keep its balance. We'll leave it here. And look, we have a big Triceratops here. Earlier we talked about the Styracosaurus, and as you can see, they look very similar. However, the Triceratops, as I mentioned, had 3 large horns. The upper horns could reach more than 1 meter in length. Ooh. And now we have the last dinosaur left to meet, and this dinosaur is not a real dinosaur. It's the great Indominus Rex, a dinosaur created in science fiction, meaning it didn't exist in reality. It appears in the Jurassic World movies, and as you know, it was created by combining the DNA of other deadly dinosaurs. As you know, it was very fierce and had a large jaw, and its skin was characterized by a light color. And now, friends, we've finished today's video. Here we have all the dinosaurs we've learned about, and we're going to make a combination. As I mentioned, we can swap the pieces. What do you think? If we put the head of a Carnotaurus on the body of a Spinosaurus, it's going to look amazing. Also, since they have different colors, the combination is going to look great. We just took off the heads, and now we're combining them to make our mutant dinosaur, a Carnotaurus with a big crest of spines. And now, friends, if you enjoyed today's video, you can help me out by giving me a super like, a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any videos. See you in the next video with more amazing dinosaurs. Goodbye!